Dave with Hamilton Motor Company. Today we have a 2013 Lexus LS here, and we're going to be installing the Hamilton Motor Company Apple CarPlay and Android Auto conversion kit. We sell these kits for almost every model of Lexus and Toyota, and our kits will add Apple CarPlay and Android Auto to the factory screens. We have a North Carolina-based tech support team to help you with your install or any support questions you might have. You can give us a call anytime at 919-858-2890 or check out our website for our forum and YouTube channel for other vehicle information. Let's get started. We're going to shift the vehicle into neutral, apply the parking brake. We're going to start by removing the plastic clips that hold down this cover, and we'll set the cover aside. From here, we can go ahead and locate and disconnect the negative battery terminal. From here, locate the negative terminal on the battery, and we're going to loosen and disconnect it to turn power off to the vehicle. Inside the vehicle, we are going to remove these leather-covered trim panels on either side of the central control unit. Start from the back and work your way forward, simply popping them loose. Remove the panels one by one and set them aside. We're going to repeat the process on the driver's side here. Start towards the back before the emergency brake and simply loosen the panel. There will be one wiring harness to disconnect for the start-stop button. Set this panel aside. With the trim panels removed, we've exposed two 10mm bolts on either side of the central control unit, and they are Phillips head. We'll use either a large Phillips head screwdriver or a 10mm socket to remove both of these bolts. We'll repeat this process on the driver's side. Next, we're going to remove a 10mm bolt on either side of the upper screen. We will start with the one on the passenger side. I'm using a 10mm socket with an extension to remove this. Now we're going to reach in here and loosen this bolt. And once it gets to the end of its threads, simply reach in there and support it with your fingers as you pull it out. We will repeat this process on the driver's side. In preparation of removing the air vents, we're going to come behind this piece of gauge cluster trim here, and I'm going to use my fingers to pop it loose. This will give us clearance to remove the air vent. With the gauge cluster trim loose, it's now time to remove the air vents on either side of the screen. I'm going to use a microfiber towel to protect the air vents as well as my hands, and I'm simply going to pop them loose, and then I'm going to negotiate this one around the piece of gauge cluster trim. We'll set this air vent aside. We will now repeat this process on the passenger side. Once again, we can set this air vent aside. Removing the air vents has exposed a large Phillips head 10mm bolt on both sides of the factory screen. We're going to use a large Phillips head screwdriver or 10mm socket to remove both of these. We will repeat this process on the passenger side. Loosen the bolt and remove it and set it aside. With both air vents removed, grip the screen unit from either side and free it from its assembly. We will then turn it upside down and remove the three wiring harnesses. There'll be a white, a blue, and then a white multi-pin connector. Remove these and set the screen in a very safe place. Removing the screen has revealed two 10mm bolts. We will remove both of these. Grip the gear shift and thread it counterclockwise to remove it from the vehicle. Now, grip on either side of the factory radio unit, rock it from side to side and remove it. We've used this orange towel to protect our lower center console here, and we can now access the wiring. All Hamilton units come with wired and wireless CarPlay. You can install this USB port in a variety of locations. You could put it in the glove box, you can have it come out between the seats right here. For this customer, we're going to be installing it in the center trim box below his radio. For that reason, I'm going to remove all these wires back here, and I'm going to take this unit out onto my workbench. You would not have to do that. So if you don't want to install your USB port into the center trim box, if you're not that worried about it, then you can skip this section of the video and we will show you the wiring when we have the unit back in the vehicle in just a minute. To remove all the wires, we're going to start with this large power wire. You're going to use your fingernail to reach in on this little clip, pop it back, lift up on the gray bar, and then one by one we will push down on the clips and remove all the wires holding this unit into the vehicle. Now here's the thing. These wires will only fit in one way. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. So you don't need to worry about taking a lot of pictures before you remove the unit. And finally, we'll have two more down here. This white one and this black one. Lastly, grab this gray one from the driver's side here. We are installing this USB port into the center trim box here. We're going to use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove 1, 2, 3, 4 screws holding the trim box onto the radio. This is optional. You don't have to install this USB port at all. You can also run it to the glove box, but we want to go and install this and make it look really super factory for this customer. So this is an extra step to really take it up an extra notch. Now prior to starting this, we removed this little removable ashtray. It pops out. With the 4 screws removed, lift the trim box free from the radio assembly. Take your USB port and feed it through the opening for the cigarette lighter. There is a small trim access here. Insert your finger like this, pop it up starting from the front to the back and remove it, and that will give you a window to view it. Open and close the box a few times, and as you manipulate the box, feed your USB through until you see it present like this. Once you do, you can tuck it in here and close the box. This will look really nice once we're back in the vehicle. We'll show it to you in just a minute. Return the access port, and we'll go ahead and reinstall the box into the radio assembly. Once again, we will use a Phillips head screwdriver, and we'll gently put these 4 screws back into place. We've covered the table with towels while we're doing this, so as you screw in and out, you're not scratching your unit. Be aware while you're putting these screws back in, we're putting metal screws into plastic, so there's no reason to go like too tight or to use a power tool or anything like that. If you'll just use a screwdriver and go really slowly, you'll be just fine. Toyota really does make all of their internal pieces just as durable as the vehicles that we know. So it's highly unusual that you would ever mess anything up. I've never heard of a customer permanently damaging a trim piece while installing one of our products. With these 4 screws in place, turn the unit around, and you'll see that's how it will present. And just like that, we'll go put this back in the vehicle. We are now going to unbundle and start wiring the main power harness. We're going to be making 2 connections back here. One is going to be the audio connection and one is the power wire connection. Keep in mind, this one labeled media can or mouse needs to stay connected together. Don't touch that one. For this large power wire, the Hamilton female is going to accept the vehicle male, and you'll close that gray bar until it snaps into place. We will in a minute plug this one back into the factory radio. The Hamilton female, labeled audio, is going to accept the vehicle male, Press it till it snaps, and this one will go back into the radio. We will be plugging this long tan wire into the slot labeled power on the Hamilton system. And just like that, the main harness is complete. We're going to take the light blue female wire from the Hamilton kit and plug it into the blue male wire coming out of your factory system. And we're going to take this and we're going to route it behind the central cross member here. And this will allow us to plug it into the Hamilton interface. Connect the royal blue wires together. Next, we will take the magenta to light blue male from the Hamilton harness. This male will plug into the back of your factory screen. We will run the magenta down through that same path. And we will leave the blue male up top. The magenta will connect to the Hamilton unit. Your kit also comes with this Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna. It will clip onto this white connector here. You do not need to put this antenna anywhere special. It can simply tuck with the Hamilton kit when we install it in just a minute. This USB accessory harness, we will not be using any of the RCAs. We'll take the accessory harness and we will connect it to the port on the Hamilton box labeled USB. With that, the wiring from the Hamilton side is almost complete. Now, we will take the Hamilton interface and its harnesses, and we will tuck it back into the dash and below the air vent. We can now proceed to reinstall the factory radio. We can now reinstall the factory radio. We'll start from bottom and go to the top. We're going to install this gray wire as well as the white wire from the bottom and the black wire. Next, we'll move to the wires on the back of the metal portion. We are now going to proceed to this metal portion here, and we will continue wiring the unit. Once again, for this video, we'll be going from bottom to top. All of these harnesses will fit together only one way, like a jigsaw puzzle, so you do not risk plugging anything into the wrong port. That being said, not every harness has a slot, depending on how your vehicle was optioned. So if you get to the end and you have one harness that, did not have a harness from the beginning, don't worry about it. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that your vehicle didn't have that option. Now these two are going to be where the Hamilton harnesses plug in. So we've plugged your factory vehicle male into the Hamilton female, and now the Hamilton male is going to plug into the back of your radio here. Once again, just like the factory, make sure that gray bar snaps down. And finally, this one labeled audio is going to connect right here. This vehicle did not have a slot for anything right there. Alrighty, now we can proceed to wire the radio and put the factory screen back into place. Before we reinstall the radio back into the dash, I want to make one point to you. This was the USB wire that we installed into the center trim unit. It needs to run under this cross member here so that it does not get in the way of us reinstalling the radio. With all the wiring connections made and running in the right direction, we are going to maneuver the factory radio back into place. I've been using this cloth to cover the center console. As we get it back into its slot, we can pull this cloth out and we'll apply pressure on both sides to let the clips snap it into place. You'll know you have it in right when the clips could hold it on its own. You only want those bolts to be an extra safety mechanism. And just like that, the unit is reinstalled. We're going to go ahead and reinstall these two large Phillips head screws on either side of the radio down here. With these, we are putting metal screws into plastic, so be gentle. You don't need to over tighten them. We'll do one on the driver and one on the passenger side. Next, we're going to reinstall these two bolts over the factory radio. It's now time to reconnect the wires for the screen. These two white wires are factory wires, and we will simply plug them back into their spots. This blue wire looks just like the factory wire, but remember, the factory wire plugged into the Hamilton female, so this is the Hamilton male coming off that magenta port of our box. Go ahead and plug that into the same blue slot. And just like that, we can turn the screen around and install it. And with the wires installed, we'll go ahead and reinstall this screen. Be aware there are these two black clips on the top that fit into two clips underneath the top of the dash. We'll go ahead and set the screen into place. Once again, you want this screen to be firmly in place with no bolts needed. These bolts are just a safety mechanism, so make sure the screen and the radio are all sitting flush with no bolts needed. And now we'll go ahead and add the screws and bolts for the screen. We are now going to reinstall the two Phillips head screws at the top of the screen here. These are going into plastic threads, so don't over torque them. With the two screws installed, we will reinstall these 10mm bolts on either side of the factory screen. In order to reinstall this factory air vent, you do need to loosen this trim panel like we had in the beginning under the gauge cluster. It may provide you some extra room to reach in and pop loose this trim panel here, and that allows you to really get this center panel loose while you negotiate these two panels into place. As you can see, there is a little bit of negotiation that is required between these two trim panels as you reinstall the factory air vent, and we will now move to the passenger side. We will now reinstall the leather covered trim panels on either side of the center console. Start from the top and snap the clips into place as you work towards the back. Make sure all the clips are firmly pressed into place. Now we can move to the driver's side. We are now going to reconnect the start-stop button and press the driver's side panel back into place. Make sure all your clips snap firmly into place. Now thread the factory gear shift back into place. Place the negative battery terminal back on its post and tighten it into place. And that concludes our video with the 2013 Lexus LX. On our YouTube channel, we're going to have another video that'll be called How to Get the Audio Working. It'll show you how to get your audio configured for the first time. We recommend you take a look at that before using your unit for the first time. We'll also film an overview video that shows you what CarPlay does and how it works. We make kits and replacement screens for almost every model of Lexus and Toyota. If you see something that's not on our website that you need, just give us a call at 919-858-2890 and our tech support team will help you out.